Looks like we have a dry coat of paint here. That linen has dried beautifully. This now has the appearance of a ceramic piece, and I'm very impressed with it. A couple of things have happened, and I want to share all the details with you so that you'll get an understanding of this entire process. When you paint metal, the thing that you want to consider is that metal has a tendency to rust when there is moisture applied to it. So paint has a little bit of water in it. So over time, you could possibly have some rust. I wanted to make sure that was not going to happen, so I applied the paint, and I waited longer than usual to come back and paint a second or third coat. Realizing here, especially in the corners, further back here, you wanted to make sure that things didn't settle into rust spots and things like that, because over time that could really affect your piece, and water could be trapped in a little crack or something. I didn't want that to happen. So this is fully dry, and where I saw potential problems, I simply made sure they were dry and I painted it again. So another point about metal. The second thing is, over time, anything, be it wood or metal, the oils from our skin, when it comes into human contact with anything, wood or metal, you can build up oil layers on these pieces. So they may be difficult to paint. So you always want to paint a coat, go back, take a look, see how that is going to dry, if you need to apply a second or third coat, because those oils will stop maybe just 2 or 3 spots from where someone constantly applied their fingertips or something from holding paint, and next thing you know, that piece is always fading away because we didn't make sure that the oils were wiped off. So clean your pieces first, wipe them down, a little light, simple detergent, nothing with heavy additives in it. Make sure it's dry, then begin to apply your paint to it. Then make sure your paint is dry before you go on to your next layering or blending effects or anything that you're desiring to do. Definitely wanted to share that with you. Now, what has been happening here? I've begun to apply my wax. This is fully dry, and I'm going to pull this close to the camera so you can actually see. It looks sort of like a linen effect. Really looks very, very thick. Has a porcelain look to it, something that I love. Transforming metals into porcelain pieces really warms up a kitchen or anything that you place a porcelain piece on, or ceramics. So here we go. I applied wax already, several layers. I've really worn down this little candle around the edges, very, very thick. You can almost see how thick that corner is. Remember, we put several coats of paint on that corner from the start, all the corners, period. Along the edges, I've applied wax around the face of the fixture. Around here is wax already applied, just using my candle. Don't worry about going horizontally, vertically, or anything like that. There's no specific way, but you know, when it comes to distressing, you distress in a natural process, a natural way, so that it doesn't look overworked or either unnatural with distressing. So you know that the corners of things tend to get bumped, so you basically want to distress your corners. That's done. Top to bottom, all around. I even did the bottom part here. I did along the edges here, rounding out my corners. Heavy, heavy wax applied here. And then, guys, I want you to notice this kind of fans out this way with the wax. It kind of fans this way, going around, and along the top, fanning around here, because once I start to blend, when I apply those other layers of paint, you're going to see this ivory come back. Also, along the edges here, applied plenty of wax, plenty of wax here. And then, of course, around the edges of the bottom, wax was applied here as well. This is a protective measure as well, guys. You know, sitting on your counters and things like that, wax really will soften the blow so that your furniture is not stretched or scratched up so very, very easily. So that's a very protective measure to take. And again, you want to apply wax along the top here, because you know what? Even if I don't distress this a lot here, what's going to happen is as this top hits it, it will fade or chip the paint, and I don't want that to happen. I am going to apply my Minwax polyurethane spray to the finishing product to protect it once I've done all the final paints and all of that, so that you guys can know that this is going to be protected in the long run. The process for applying the wax to the top, same thing with the corners, where this is raised just a little bit. We applied it to the corners here, very, very heavy. When I say we, I really mean me. There's no mysterious assistant in my garage. Not as I know of. Okay, so we continue to apply our wax along the edges. I applied wax also here along the corners very, very heavily. And I like things that I can pretty much handle. These smaller candles work better for me. The larger ones, you can use a stick candle. Those are just as good. But I like the smaller ones because I just like to make sure that I'm pretty much in control of what it's doing and how much wax is actually being applied. So again, lots of wax has been applied to this piece already. We are now going to work on applying our stencil piece to this. I have a lovely stencil that I purchased from Hobby Lobby, and I just love buying stencils because I never know what I'm going to do or run across. And since I've started this hobby, I spend most of my time in the craft places more so. I've never been a shopper. I really am not a fan of shopping. It's 31 years of retail, and that's kind of worn off me. But we're going to apply this stencil here. Remember, we are going to apply coats of paint along the edges, and we're going to go back and distress these edges here in the corner. And then we're going to also start our stencil here. That's going to be distressed as well because I want it to appear that this had a design on it at some point and it just kind of faded away very, very softly. I'm a newbie at this. I will let you know I'm not a professional, not claiming to be the ultimate teacher of painting on metals. I'm simply indulging in something that I love, changing something from old to new and putting something with love in my home. And I'm so thankful to have a home, and I just love creating things. So I like to share these things with you and maybe inspire you to take something old, I always say, and make it new again. So we're going to get started with simply just adding our stencil onto the bottom, and we're going to go back and we're going to distress along the sides by adding those little streaks of paint, and that would be my rolling on the river or rolling sea blue mixed in with the cathedral stone gray. I'm still in the same room, so I continue to use those same colors, but I just wanted you to get the feel of waxing and blending. Of course, we could just streak the furniture to distress it with our paintbrush and paint on it lightly. You probably would get the same effect, but you know what? I was in a store yesterday and I was just disgusted with that whole process. It looked artificial, it looked fake. Now you've just kind of painted a highlight onto something. It's okay to do that one or two times, but every single time, the furniture makers or ceramic makers are mass producing everything, but what you're doing is you're creating something with love, and that's the special part about doing all this. So we're going to continue with our waxing, and now let's set the stage to put our stencil and get those colors on and blend.